All right, so we're going to go back to section 5.5. We're going to finish that off. Okay. And so in this part, we're going talking about scientific notation. I'm sure you are seen it before or probably very familiar with it. So just remember that before I get into these two parts here, um, let me just talk about something real quick. Okay. Um, okay. So if you have a term, right, raised say 10 to the 0 power, okay? And if you want to move the decimal to the right, then the power is going to go down, okay? So if we move it to the right, then the power, okay, goes down. If you move it to the left, okay, you move that decimal to the left, then the power will go up. So the power will go up. Okay. So for example, here, um, in regards to writing scientific notation, notice that um, if I'm starting here on the very far right and I move the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, notice that the power went up. If it started at 10 to the 0, it went up to 10 to the fourth power. Okay. Now, um, if I wanted to move the decimal to the right, if you look at the bottom here, so if my decimal's here, I move it to the right, that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. Notice that the power went down. Okay, now it's -3. Okay, so that's what this is stating. If you move the decimal to the right, the power goes down. If you move the decimal to the left, the power goes up. Now, in regards to scientific notation, notice for both of these example, there is only one number in front of that decimal. So in order to have in scientific notation, you can only have one non-zero. That means any number besides zero. Okay, so 1 through 9, except you cannot have zero, right? You cannot have zero as the front number. So if it was 0.2, that is not in scientific notation. If there's multiple zeros, okay, again, that's not in scientific notation. If I have 20.01, that's not in scientific notation. It has to be one number in front of that decimal. So it can be 1.2, 2.2, 3.2, doesn't matter, 4.6, 7.5. It doesn't matter as long as it's not a zero or two numbers in front of that decimal. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to do two examples in scientific notation. One is going to be multiplying, and then the other one's going to be dividing. Okay. All right. So let's say we have 6 um, times 10 to the fifth power, and then um, 4.7 times 10 to the ninth power. Okay. So let's say we have that. All right, so what you want to do here is you want to multiply the ones with no powers together, and then you want to multiply the ones with powers together. So if we put this in the calculator, 6 times 4.7. So again, I'm going to multiply these guys together. 6 times 4.7. And then multiply the ones with powers together. That's 10 to the 5th times 10 to the 9th. Okay? So if I multiply these together here, I'm going to get 28.2. Okay? Now, if we look at this one here, how do we do this? Well, remember the rule is if you have, say, x to the third times x squared, you just add the powers, right? So that's 3 plus 2, which gives you x to the fifth. So the rule is x to the a times x to the b is going to be x raised to the a plus b, okay? So it is the same with this one. We have 10 to the fifth times 10 to the ninth. So when we add the powers, 5 plus 9, it gives us 10 to the 14th power. Okay? All right, so here we have 28.2 times 10 to the 14th power. Okay? So I'm going to move, again, is this in scientific notation? The answer is no, because there's two numbers in front of that decimal. So in order to make it scientific, I have to move move the decimal one more place to the left. Okay? So this gives me 2.82 times 10. And then again, if I go back to what I said, if you move to the left, the decimal to the left, the power will go up. So we start at 14, but it's going to go move to the left. So it's going to raise by one more. So that'll be 10 to the 15th power. All right. So this is my answer in scientific notation. All right, so again, I'm multiplying these two, okay? So I'm going to match the ones with no powers together. And then I'm going to match the ones with powers together, okay? All right, so 9 times 5.4 is going to give us 48.6. And then 10 to the 8 times 10 to the negative 4, remember we add those. All right, so 8 plus negative 4 is going to give us a positive 4. All right, so this will be times 10 to the fourth power. But again, there are two numbers in front of the decimal. That is not in scientific notation. We have to have only one number. Cannot emphasize that enough. All right, so that means I have to move the decimal to the left. That becomes 4.86 times what? Times 10. Again, I go back to the rule. If I move it to the left, then the power goes up. So this would be times 10 to the fifth power. And there's our answer there. So we want to divide this. We have 9 times 10 to the fifth divided by 5 times 10 to the second. We're going to do exactly the same thing like we did last time. We're going to match the ones with no powers and then match the ones with powers. So I'm going to have 9 divided by 5, okay? Times that by, I'm going to put this in parentheses, okay? 10 to the fifth divided by 10 squared, okay? So now the rule is, so in the previous one, when we multiply, we added the powers. So in this case, when we divide, we're going to subtract the powers. So if we add x to the 7 divided by x to the third, we just subtract the powers. 7 minus 3 will give me x to the fourth power. Okay? So it would be, say, x to the a over x to the b, which is going to be x to the a minus b. Okay, so this is the rule. Okay, So here we have 9 divided by 5. If we put that in the calculator, we're going to get 1.8. Okay, 9 divided by 5 is 1.8. Now for this one, again, we're dividing. So when we divide, we subtract. So we subtract the powers. So that'll be 5 minus 2, which gives me 3. So the answer here will be 10 to the third power. And I just put the multiplication in the middle. Now, since there's only one number in front of the decimal, I don't have to worry about moving it. Okay, so I leave it alone. So my answer is 1.8 times 10 to the third power. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same thing like we did before. We're going to match the ones with powers and then match the ones with no powers. So I'm going to match these guys and I'm going to match those guys. So I'm going to have 7. This is going to be equal to 7.2 divided by 1.6 times 10 to the 6 divided by 10 to the negative 7 power. So 7.2 divided by 1.6, that's going to give us 4.5. Now this one we have 6 over here, right? So we're going to subtract. So it'll be 6 minus, then don't forget the other negative here. Okay? So again, when we're dividing, we subtract the powers. So we have 6 minus, then the negative 7. Okay? So the two negatives is going to give us a positive. So that will be 13. So this will be 4.5 times 10 to the 13th power.